You've probably spent hours shading your drawings only for them to still look flat. It's frustrating, and here is why it happens. Most artists were taught to copy shadows but not to understand them. You were given techniques, not a system. In this tutorial, I will show you how shading actually works and why mastering light is more powerful than any pencil trick you've learned before. You'll be needing a charcoal pencil, a mono zero eraser, blending stump, makeup brushes, especially this little one, a white pen and electric eraser. So it's time to grit the paper and get to business. In order to achieve that realism and depth I desire, I always like to shade the three best features of the face first: the eyes, the nose, and the mouth. I believe that once I get these three perfectly, I've won 70% of the battle. So moving on to the eyes, I start by laying out the outlines first. I do this to keep the outlines visible even after shading over the eyes. Now, notice how I am not shading with the pencil right away. I'm just laying clean outlines here. Don't get tempted to start drawing the rashes immediately, or it will affect your shading later on. After the outline, I use the blending stump to smoothen the lines. This helps us remove those sharp lines that makes the eyes unrealistic. And after that, I will use the blending stump to add small light shading around the eye. This helps me later when shading with a brush. It's like a foundation, shows me where to build on. Then after, I now shade with a brush. I shade in a circular light motion, transitioning from shadows to light. This is where the smallest brush in my arsenal shines. Small brushes work well in tiny areas like the eyes, ear, mouth, etc. You know, small brushes can be patchy sometimes, so in order to get it smoother, I actually use the medium-sized brush to smoothen it and shade the other areas around the eyes. Once I'm comfortable with the shading, I use the soft charcoal pencil again to shade the pupil and to redraw the fading details, blending it out with a brush. And now, go on with what really makes the art pop: highlighting. I simply use the white pen to draw the sharp highlights on the iris just as it appears on the reference photo. You can use an electric eraser for this too, but I just like the way a white pen shines brighter, so I use it for the shiny highlights always. Once I'm done highlighting the sharpest highlight that appears on the iris, I now use an electric eraser to do the rest of the job. I use the electric eraser to detail, add the highlight that shows on the eyelids and so on in a dot pattern to simply give the illusion of skin pores. Then I add the details. This is when you are allowed to draw the lashes. Add skin pores and eyebrows. So watch closely as I apply the exact same technique to the nose. I start by lightly sketching the outlines, nothing too dark, just enough to map out the shape and placement. One mistake beginners make is pressing too hard during this stage, which ends up making the outlines difficult to erase or blend later. So I always recommend keeping your hand light, almost like you are whispering with a pencil. Once I'm happy with the sketch, I bring in the blending stump to smooth it out. This not only softens the harsh pencil strokes, but also gives me a base to work with. I use light shading motions with the stump instead of dragging it back and forth. This helps avoid patchy blending and makes the tones look more even. Next, I lightly shade over the area again using the blending stump, but this time I am more intentional about where the shadows fall. Now comes the brush. I use a soft makeup brush, either a small or a medium-sized one, and gently blend everything together. This step makes the tones even smoother and helps me add a soft gradient across the surface of the nose. It's also perfect for creating soft shadows that don't look too drawn, if that makes sense. And if you want that buttery skin texture, the brush is your best friend. After that, it's time to bring the nose to life with details. I go in and add details with a pencil. Then for skin pores or texture, I tap gently with a pointy eraser or draw tiny circular marks with a sharp pencil. Don't stress the pores too much though, less is more. Just enough to break that overly smooth look and make it more realistic. One tip I will add here is to constantly zoom out or step back from your drawing. It's easy to get caught up in tiny details, but from a distance, it helps you see if the nose looks too flat or overly sharp. I also use tissue paper or cotton pads in some areas if I want super soft shading. Also highlight with an eraser, either an electric eraser or a mono zero eraser to lift some charcoal where the light naturally hits. And most importantly, don't rush this part. The nose might look simple, but it's one of the trickiest features to get right because of its soft curves and soft shadows. Take your time, build your tunes gradually, and keep comparing both sides for balance. Before we move on to the next important part, please take a second to hit the like button and subscribe if you haven't already. It might look like a small thing, but it really goes a long way. It helps me keep creating videos like this and shows me that you are actually following along and learning something new. And here is something I always tell people who want to improve. Try shading along with me. Don't just watch and say, nice drawing. Actually pick up your pencil and do it as the video plays. That's exactly how I learned this technique. Matter of fact, what you are seeing on screen now is my first ever attempt at realistic drawing. I followed the tutorial just like this one while working on that drawing, and I'll be honest, it wasn't perfect, but it was a major breakthrough for me. That moment gave me so much confidence, just realizing, wait, I can actually do this. So yeah, don't underestimate that first try. Even if it doesn't look clean, it's a win. Something else that helped me big time was writing down the process. I literally grabbed my journal and started listing each step. Outlines, blending, shading, detailing, like I was taking notes in class. And believe it or not, I still go back to those notes sometimes when I feel stuck. So I would really encourage you to do the same. Get a journal or even just a notepad, and as you are watching this, write down the key steps I'm using. Treat it like you are building your own personal drawing guidebook, because when it's time to start your next piece, having that reference makes things so much easier. Trust me, the more intentional you are about how you learn, the faster you will improve. Now, moving to the cheeks. How do we shade the cheeks? This is where most beginners watching this video might start ruining their drawing, but if you pay close attention, you won't make the beginner's mistake. Now, please, if you don't like paying attention to me, just use this as a takeaway from this video. Don't shade your cheeks with the smallest brush you have. The cheek is one of the widest features of the face, along with the forehead. So please, find a medium or bigger brush you have and shade the first layer. When you make use of the small brush, you end up getting patchy skin. I made this mistake time after time after time and after time as a beginner, and the failures demotivated me from creating new drawings. I'm adding tiny circles here to create the illusion of skin pores. Usually, I would do this after shading, but I decided to try it out, I guess. Oh, before I forget, shout out to my returning viewers, Kennedy Art and Nnade Kenshile, and thanks for always commenting. You can comment anything for a shout out on my next video. And that wraps up the main shading process. I didn't shade every single part on camera, but I used the exact same techniques you've seen me apply, especially on the nose, to shade the hand and the rest of the portrait. Same steps, same flow, outline, blend, brush, detail. Once you get the hang of that pattern, it starts becoming second nature. Now, before I sign out, you already know what's coming. The grand review moment. I'm talking clean transitions, chill beats, and a full look at the final piece in all its glory. It's always the most satisfying part for me, watching all those small steps come together into something that actually feels alive. If this video helped you, even just a little, go ahead and hit that like button. It takes 1 second, but really supports the channel and tells me I should keep making more videos like this. And if you haven't subscribed yet, what are you doing? Hit that too so you don't miss what's coming next. Speaking of what's coming next, the funny thing is, this shading process actually comes after something even more important: getting your proportions right. That's where most people struggle. So in the next video, I will break down how to draw the face accurately, step by step, even if you've never drawn a portrait before. So go watch that next, and I will see you in the next one. For now, sit back, enjoy, because the moment you have been waiting for is here. The review.